Unfortunately, I won't say Republican because I think they're pretty well divided, but our MAGA Republicans in Congress are threatening to undo all this progress by letting us, quote, default on the debt unless we agree to their demands. The two are totally unrelated. Whether you pay the debt or not doesn't have a damn thing to do with what your budget is. What your budget is. Where you're going to spend money, how you're going to raise the money, what are you going to cut, they're two separate issues, two. And let's get it straight. We're trying to hold the debt hostage to us to agree to some draconian cuts, magnificently difficult and damaging cuts. And so look, next week I'm going to reiterate to congressional leaders that they should do what every other Congress has done. That is, pass the debt limit, avoid default. And as I've said all along, we can debate where to cut, how much to spend, how to finally move the tax system where everybody doesn't pay their fair share or continue the route they're on, but not under the threat of default. The last thing this country needs, after all we've been through, is a manufactured crisis. And that's what this is, a manufactured crisis. And that's what it is from beginning to end. It's a manufactured crisis driven by the MAGA Republicans in the Congress.
It's therefore with great hope that I declare COVID-19 over as a global health emergency.
The Director General of the World Health Organization on Friday announced he was ending the emergency he declared for COVID-19 more than 3 years ago, marking a major milestone in the pandemic that has killed more than 6.9 million people, disrupted the global economy, and ravaged communities.
COVID has changed our world.
The move comes a day after the WHO Emergency Committee recommended the UN agency declare an end to the coronavirus crisis. But the WHO chief warned that the end of the emergency did not mean COVID was over as a global health threat.
The worst thing any country could do now is to use this news as a reason to let down its guard, to dismantle the systems it has built, or to send the message to its people that COVID-19 is nothing to worry about. If we all go back to how things were before COVID-19, we will have failed to learn our lessons, and we will have failed future generations.
The WHO's declaration comes just 4 months after China ended its prolonged and severe COVID restrictions after a surge in infections. In many parts of the world, testing has dwindled dramatically, and people have largely stopped wearing masks. Ending the emergency could mean that international collaboration or funding efforts are also brought to an end or shift in focus, although many have already adapted as the pandemic has receded in different regions. Last year, U.S. President Joe Biden said the pandemic was over. Like a number of other countries, the U.S. has begun dismantling its domestic state of emergency for COVID, meaning it will stop paying for vaccines and testing for many people and shift the responsibility to the commercial market. Later on Friday, Biden said in a statement that top U.S. public health official Rochelle Walensky will step down at the end of June from her role as director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. In her resignation letter, Walensky, who led the institution for 2 years at a time when the pandemic was at its peak, wrote, quote, "The end of the COVID-19 public health emergency marks a tremendous transition for our country, for public health, and in my tenure as CDC director."
A report from the U.S. Labor Department on Friday showed job growth unexpectedly accelerated in April, while wage gains increased solidly. Employers added roughly 250,000 jobs last month, pointing to sustained labor market strength. That could lead the Federal Reserve to keep interest rates higher for longer as it continues to try to lower high inflation. The unemployment rate fell back to a more than 50-year low of 3.4%. Though jobs data for February and March were revised sharply lower. The Fed lifted interest rates 0.25 point this week and signaled it may pause hikes from here. But one economist tells Reuters the central bank may need to rethink that after seeing this report. Other economists, however, believe that the labor market is overstating the health of the economy. They point to consumer spending that stalled in February and March, and 5 straight quarters of productivity declines on a year-over-year basis. the longest such stretch since the government started tracking it. With risks of a recession mounting because of the high borrowing costs and tighter credit conditions that have coincided with financial market stress, the hiring landscape could change quickly. Stocks, though, were higher in midday trading following the jobs report, with Apple contributing to the gains after posting solid earnings.
Did you or anyone on your staff reach out to anyone at Bergdorf Goodman?
I didn't have to reach out to anybody because it didn't happen. And by the way, if it did happen, it would have been reported within minutes. Talking about going to a major floor, probably, I assume, the most important floor, a major floor in a major department store. That's a very busy store, by the way. And checkout counters and everything else. And I would be in there. I mean, it's the most ridiculous, disgusting story. It was just made up.
When you said that Ms. Carroll was not your type, you meant that she was not your type physically, right?
I saw her in a picture. I didn't know what she looked like. And I said it, and I say it with as much respect as I can, but she is not my type.
When you were talking back on June 24th, you were referring to her not being your type physically,
I saw a photo of her,
okay.
And the only difference between me and other people is I'm honest. She's not my type.
A black and white photograph that we've marked as DJT23. And I'm going to ask you, is this the photo that you were just referring to?
I think so, yes. I don't even know who the woman, let's see, I don't know who, it's Marla.
You're saying Marla's in this photo?
That's Marla, yeah, that's my wife.
Which one are you pointing to? No.
Here. Oh, is that,
The person you
okay.
just pointed to was
Oh, I
E.
see.
Jean Carroll.
Who is that? Who is this?
And the woman on the right is your then wife,
I don't know,
Ivana?
this was the picture. I assume that's John Johnson, is that Carol? Because it's very blurry. She's accusing me of rape. A woman that I have no idea who she is. It came out of the blue. She's accusing me of rape, of raping her. The worst thing you can do, the worst charge. And you know it's not true too. You're a political operative also. You're a disgrace. But she's accusing me, and so are you, of rape, and it never took place. And I will tell you, I made that statement and I said, while it's politically incorrect, she's not my type. And that's 100% true. She's not my type.
The head of Russia's Wagner mercenaries has made a sudden and dramatic announcement that he'll pull his forces out of Bakhmut because of heavy losses. But Ukraine said they were in fact reinforcing their positions to try to seize the city before Russia marks victory in World War II Day next week. Shortly before his statement on Friday, Yevgeny Prigozhin appeared in the following graphic video. Yelling and swearing at Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu and Chief of General Staff Valery Gerasimov. He's surrounded by dozens of corpses, which he says are Wagner fighters. Amid a torrent of expletives that were bleeped out by his press service, he lambasts the officials for a, quote, 70% shortage of ammunition. Then came this video appeal, accompanied by a written statement to the head of General Staff, the Defense Ministry and President Vladimir Putin as Supreme Commander. In it, Prigozhin said his forces would withdraw from the city on May 10th, ending their involvement in the longest and bloodiest battle of the war. That's the day after Victory Day, when Putin is to address the nation from Red Square.
We were going to capture Bakhmut by May 9th, 2023. However, having seen this, these pseudo-military bureaucrats practically stopped the supply of any ammunition to prevent us from doing that. They're sitting there, jiggling their fat bellies and thinking that they'll go down in history as winners. They've already gone down in history as cowards.
The announcement comes at a key juncture in the war, before an expected counter-offensive by Ukraine. Ukraine's Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar said Russia was redeploying Wagner fighters from along the front line to Bakhmut. Prigozhin asked defense chiefs to put regular army troops in the place of his soldiers. He said what was left of Wagner would retreat to logistics camps to lick their wounds. It was not clear if his declaration could be taken at face value. He has posted impulsive comments in the past, and only last week withdrew a statement he said was a joke. Bakhmut, a city of 70,000 before the war, has taken on huge symbolism for both sides because of the sheer intensity and duration of the fighting there. Prigozhin said 3 weeks ago that his men controlled more than 80% of the city, but Ukrainian defenders have held out. The Kremlin declined to comment on Prigozhin's statement, citing the fact that it was related to the course of its special military operation in Ukraine.